Hi, I'm making this video to point out a few things and just to illustrate how you could use the article editor to make things look a little bit better. Now, what I'm on about really is if you look at these three boxes there, you will find that reads fairly well. It is left justified in the box. It leaves a bit of a ragged edge on the right hand side, so could be improved a little bit. If you look at the bottom one, you will see everything is centralized, and it looks quite pleasing to the eye, and it reads fairly well because it is formatted in a way that centralizes it very nicely in the box. Every line is very nicely centralized. If you look at this one, you will find that with your view at this specific size, it looks, the fun day sits on, sort of hangs over to the right hand side of the box, and then you've got sort of big gaps there which doesn't look very pleasing, so it looks a little bit chaotic in that box. But that is only true for this specific size of view of the website. Now, to illustrate a few things, if I would go onto my PC and make this a full screen view, now you won't see a full screen view in this video because the video is not that large. The video is more or less the size of a laptop screen, so what you see is more or less the size of a laptop screen. So on any laptop full screen, this is more or less what you will see. But if I go on my PC and I've got a fairly large 23-inch screen that I'm working on, if I make it full screen on that 23-inch, just to illustrate, you can see that it looks fairly okay. It doesn't look too bad. So if you stretch it over a big screen, you have a fairly pleasing view of that box. But we know that people these days more and more use their iPhones and their iPads to look at things on the web. So if I would change the screen to, now I've got, let me change this. If I change this to an iPad size, which is more or less that size, then this is what you will see. So on an iPad, this little box will look like that, and that doesn't look very pleasing at all really, because now even Fun Day, which is the heading of that box, is wrapped around, and the rest of it doesn't look too bad. You will see that this still looks okay, and that looks fairly okay, except that the edge on that side is quite rugged. Right, if you go even further and you look at this on an iPhone, which a lot of people will do, or let's say, let me find, there's an iPhone. So if I look at it on an iPhone, from an iPhone point of view, this is the kind of view that you will get of the website, and you will see everything looks fairly okay up until this point, when you will notice that that box looks alright, that box looks alright, but that one, yes, doesn't look too bad, but you can see it is not nicely in the center, and it does not really match the surrounding of the website. So there is a way to format this so it can look much better. So I just want to put it back to the normal view on a computer, for instance, on a laptop, and look at it from that point of view. Let me just stretch this down so it fits nicely in the viewing area. Right, so how do we do this? As you can see, you need to sign in. I am already signed in, so the only thing you need to do is edit those boxes to see what it looks like. So there's a few things that I want to point out in the editing, and hopefully it'll show you how you can do this a little bit better in the future. Right, if I click on the front box menu link, I get to all the articles that are displayed in that front box. You can see there is the one that we were talking about that needs reformatting. There's the match meals one, which is formatted OK. Both of those boxes you will find in the same article. Then you have a different article that denotes that you have a different article with the top one that you've seen there, and then you've got an article with the two boxes which you had originally in there, and that has been unpublished, and it will only show up in this view. The public can't see that because it is unpublished. We can actually trash that article altogether any one point in time in the future. Right, so what we want to work on is this one here, this article here. So if we go into the editor, the article editor for that, and scroll down where we can see the content box, then you can see how this has been centralized very nicely in the box. If I click on that line, anywhere on that line, then you will notice that we have used the center justified tool to center the text in the middle of the line. This is where the line ends and this is where it starts. The same with that line. If I click on that line, you will find the exact same has been done there. However, if I click on this line, you will find that this is block justified, which is what is causing this problem for us. And the problem I'm referring to is the problem of the big gaps that you will find between certain words. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in a new window and just refer to what I'm talking about. If you look about, you see those big gaps there. Those gaps are caused by this article being block justified. So what it says, if you wrap around, you have to spread those three words, because you couldn't fit a fourth word in there. You have to spread those three words in the whole line, so that you've got a straight edge on the right hand side and a straight edge on the left hand side. Now you would wonder why we have that gap there. So if we go back, that gap is because we have a few spaces in front of the wording there, and that is why we have that little gap there, those few spaces. So the first lesson to learn is that we shouldn't have any blank spaces to try, or we shouldn't use spaces to try and centralize things. We must use the right tool. Now you will find that there are spaces as well, as you can see there, that are highlighted, and you have probably 2 or 3 spaces there. You have 3 spaces over there, and at the back of that line you have no spaces. So the first thing that we should do is let's just get rid of all the spaces. So if I take those spaces out, I'm just going to put my cursor there, use my backspace key to take out all those spaces. Right, now there are no more spaces. Then I'm going to click anywhere at the back of that, behind the words in that line, and take out the redundant spaces there too. And there were 2. Then I'm going to click right in front of that line and take the spaces away. Oops, that was one too much. And one other thing to note is I've taken the line out between the title of that box and the content of that box. Now the way to put that in is to take your cursor behind the first line, press your shift key down, hold it down and press your return or enter key, and that'll put a line in there. If you don't do that, I'm going to demonstrate this. If you don't do that, if you don't hold the shift key down, then you will create another box when you press enter, which is what I've done. If you've done that, of course, and you want to undo anything that you've done, use that button, which will undo the last action. And of course you can undo more actions. I can also undo the mistake that I made by taking out too many spaces and deleting that line. I can undo that too. So that is now fixed. Another small thing to note is that there could be a space there, which shouldn't be too bad. So just to check, there are no blanks behind that line, and there are no blanks on that line. In the front also there are no blanks anywhere. How do we centralize this? Well, that's very simple. We click anywhere on the line, press our center tool, and it centers it perfectly in the middle of that box. That line you can see is now centered, and that line is now also centered. So everything is centered perfectly in that box, as is it on this as well. If I click on either side of everything, you can see there are no spaces and it is centered properly. Of course, that part there, I can take the underline off, so it is underlined directly under the words. Just a small thing in any case, nobody will really pick that up, apart from the absolute finicky. And as far as I'm concerned, this will now look alright. So if I would save this now, and of course saving, I can use either that button or I can use that button to save, either one of them, doesn't matter. If I save that, we will find that the article is successfully saved. We can click on the X to remove that. We will find that it now looks very centralized there. If we go back to the home page, then we will find that everything looks perfect over on that side, and nothing to worry about. Of course, because centralizing seems to be the right way to do things here, maybe we should centralize that as well. So if I just very quickly go into the front page box and I find that article, go into the editor for that article, looking at it all, if I click anywhere on the line, you will notice that it is left justified, and if I click on the center button, that is what you will see. It'll center everything, so it doesn't matter how wide the box is, everything will be centered. Of course, on the front page this looks much different, so I'm just going to save this. As I said, you can save it there or you can save it on the other button. Article is now successfully saved. I can close it clicking on the X. This is what it looks like. Everything seems to be very centralized. If I click on the home menu link, you will find that everything is centralized very nicely and it looks good. So to test how this will look on any device, I can simply grab the right hand side of this window and drag it over slowly, and you can see how things change as we look on different devices. So this would more or less be the width of, let's say, an iPad or something, and this would be the width possibly of a wider smartphone, and this would be the width of, let's say, an iPhone, more or less. So if you go down, having a look at all this, you can see very clearly that everything looks pretty okay. You can see the boxes are centralized. If you go to even a smaller phone, you can see how that works, and this is really how one should work with all your articles so that it shows up nicely on any device that anybody uses to look at this website. I'm just going to stretch it back where it is. This is how it looks on my laptop. And well, that is basically everything that I wanted to show on this video. Another thing I can show is, because we don't want that one article anymore, if I go into the front page box once more and I find the article that's unpublished, which we don't care about, we can throw it away completely now, we can trash it completely. If I go in the editor to edit that, this is what we don't want anymore, we don't need this. And if I go into the publishing tab, I will find that there is an area where we can specify the status of any article. Now at the moment that is unpublished. So you can see that the options are: you can publish it, you can unpublish it, you can archive it, which means you save it away where you don't want to lose the information, but you don't want to see it either. You can archive it, or you can trash it altogether. In this specific case, we know that we're never going to need that thing ever again, and it's really simple to recreate if you want to, and we have recreated it. So I'm simply going to click on trashed. Okay, the status is now trashed. The only thing I now have to do is to click on the save button. So if I save that, we will find that the article is successfully saved in its trashed status. If I take the message away, you will find that it has now disappeared completely, even from this page. So it is never in the way, it is gone, it is unretrievably gone. You can't get it back now anymore, but then we don't want it back, and that is it. So a nice clean website. If I go to the front page once more, I find that everything looks perfectly alright. And that is all I wanted to say in this video. I hope this helps to show you how you can format these boxes in a sensible way for any device that anyone may use to look at this website. The only thing left for me to do is to log out. This is how the public will see it, and it looks quite pleasing to the eye at the moment. Thank you for watching.